Hi, this is Rebecca Threet, and I'm going to do this review on this article, Interactions Between Monthly Training Volume, Frequency, and Running Distance per Workout on Marathon Time. This is an article by Akihiko Yamaguchi et al., and it was published in the European Journal of Applied Physiology. The study's aim was to prove the impacts of training indicators at various levels. So one of the reasons I picked this article is because it specifically addresses the question that so many runners everywhere debate. My friends and I debate about this. I debate about this with my clients, who, by the way, are usually injured from overtraining. And I hope this study would kind of shed some light on the topic. So how much should I be running? Training volume, how much should I be running in a month and a week? How frequently should I run? And how far should I run per workout? Well, what influences marathon time the most, I guess, is the question that this comes down to if you're a marathoner. Is it training indices like training frequency, running pace? Is it anthropometric variables like height, weight, or taking that to the next step, BMI? And certainly physiological factors influence marathon time. So the authors begin by describing how varied training can be from runner to runner. So this is, everybody has their own plan, right? So what's your plan? Even if weekly or monthly training volumes are the same, the longest average run can vary. The longest distance run before the race can vary. And then you add height, weight, BMI, physiological factors, running experience, and it's difficult to determine what is the biggest contributor to marathon time. So in this screen, in the slide, you can see there's, runner number 1 runs 60 miles per week. She runs 3 runs and 20 miles each. So the average run is 20 miles. Runner number 2 also logs 60 miles a week, but this runner runs 6 times, 10 miles each. And then runner number 3 also runs 60 miles, but this runner only runs 5 times and averages 12 miles per run. So, but which one's going to have the best marathon time? What about all the other factors that are involved? The authors gathered, or the researchers gathered, all of the relevant information from a sample of male recreational runners at the Hokkaido Marathon in 2017. They started with 587, 452 finished, which is similar. Their finish rate was 84.2%, which was similar to the overall male finisher rate of 81.4. So this sample is very representative just from what we can tell there. The information was gathered via a survey questionnaire in the reception area or the welcome area in the 2 days leading up to the race. These are the things they asked. They asked for their entry number, training frequency, age, monthly training volume, running career, longest running distance per workout, body height, weight, and average running distance per workout. It's important to note that the entry numbers were actually how they verified data. So they just checked afterward on the internet or via an app, like you can, and checked results in the end. The sample was broken up into 4 homogeneous subgroups examined based on running distance per workout and training frequency. So this was the monthly training, the group, right? This is kind of the basic group. And then they further broke them out into several other subgroups with the same running distance per workout or training frequency. And then they examined the relationships between the monthly training volume and marathon time. Age ranges were defined as such: runners who were younger than 30, runners in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and runners who were 60 and older. Training frequencies were divided up like this: 1 to a couple times a week, 3 to 4 times a week, 5 times per week or more runs, that is, run sessions. And then we already kind of talked about this, but these were the subgroups: running career, monthly training volume, training frequency, LRD, or longest running distance, and ARD, average running distance. And this is how you'll see them denoted throughout like the tables, LRD and ARD. The statistical analysis was done to identify the relationships between marathon time and all of these variables: age, monthly training volume, running career, training frequency, height, LRD, weight, ARD, and BMI. So now on to what they found out. Some not so surprising stuff, some pretty enlightening stuff as well. Marathon times were significantly correlated with age, running career, body weight, and BMI in runners. Unsurprisingly, the older, heavier runners with higher BMIs ran slower, and the more experienced runners ran faster. Again, just not surprising. Marathon time was also significantly correlated with monthly training volume, training frequency, the longest run distance, and the average run distance. The higher the volume and frequency, the faster the time. The longer the average running distance and longest running distance, the better the time. And within the age groups, there were more significant findings. Runners 30 and older, body weight was significantly correlated with marathon time. And runners younger than 60, BMI was significantly correlated with time. And specifically, the higher BMI, the worse the time. And runners in their 20s or 40s, not sure what happened to the 30-something age group there, but in their 20s and 40s, the runners with the longer careers had better times. Runners with, within this running career subgroup, the significant correlations between body weight and BMI and marathon time. The subjects with higher weights and BMIs ran slower. Additionally, those runners within the 5 to 20-year history of running, younger athletes ran faster. Nothing too surprising there. So this table number 5 is there's a lot to this. There's a lot of data here, but it holds the most interesting findings for sure, and the ones that are the most relevant to the research question in this article. So here we've got these subgroups broken down based on monthly training volume, training frequency, the longest run distance, and average run distance. And none of these, I'm sorry, and then in the monthly training volume groups, training frequency, longest run distance and average run distance were not significantly correlated with marathon time. All runners who ran the same volume in a month ran about the same, regardless of how often they trained or their longest running distance or the average distance they ran in training. So if they ran the same amount, it didn't matter necessarily how they broke it down. Within the training frequency groups, race time was significantly correlated with monthly training volume, longest running distance, and average running distance, except in the group that trained only once or twice a week. The average running distance and marathon time weren't really significantly correlated at all. So within the groups of runners who ran the same amount of times per week, it really mattered more how many miles they were logging. In the longest run distance LRD subgroup, monthly volume and marathon time were significantly correlated, except in runners who ran 20 kilometers or less as their longest run before the race. And the training frequency group, the groups who ran 30 or more kilometers as their longest run had better race times. In the groups that ran less, there was no significant correlation. Monthly volume and marathon time were also significantly correlated in the groups whose average training runs were 10 kilometers or longer, but not in the group who ran less than 10 kilometers. The correlation between the groups who ran 11 or more kilometers per month was significant to marathon time, but not in the lower volume groups. The groups who ran 10 kilometers or more as their average training runs were also significantly correlated to marathon time. Multiple linear regression analysis was performed in order to figure out if and how all of these other training indices and all of the anthropometric factors were related to marathon time, and they were. Monthly training volume, BMI, age, career, and longest running distance were significantly correlated with marathon time. Again, I mean, none of that is surprising. From the standardized beta value that they came up with, the researchers determined that the monthly training volume had the greatest effect on marathon time. So that was a quick rundown through all the data, but if you were paying attention, there is one variable that repeatedly came up as significantly correlated all the time: monthly training volume. This makes sense. Marathon performance has been tied strongly to anaerobic threshold and to lactate threshold, and training volume has been shown to be more important than intensity in developing a high lactate threshold. So these researchers conclude that training volume may be the primary indicator of performance in recreational marathon runners. So what's the answer? In order to run a better marathon, you have to log the miles. So runners, don't skip your long runs and get out on the road as much as you can. All right. Thank you very much for your time. And I recommend this study, highly recommend this study. It's only 7 pages with references, and most of the data is in those awesome tables that really breaks it down, makes it easy to kind of sift through. All right. Thanks again.